everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is Idaho native Austin Jardine. He's an outdoorsman and hunter. He's also the host of his own podcast, the Vanguard Project. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting down, getting to know Austin, and recording this virtual podcast with him, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Austin, welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. I really appreciate you carving some time out of your night to sit down and shoot the shit with me for a little bit.
Bobby, hell yeah. Thanks, man, for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I am too. What's new in your world, man? You got a lot of irons in the fire right now. I know with everything you got going on, but what's happening?
Dude, a lot of stuff, it feels like. I'm kind of I can't sit still. Like, I think throughout this on the video, you'll see me fidgeting around a lot. But, man, I got my podcast I just started in May, and that's consumed a lot of time. Getting ready for hunting season. So last year was the first time I'd ever really gone hunting. And I've got, the bug, something fierce, so going out scouting. And, oh, God, started doing archery. So I'm going down to the Total Archery Challenge. And then we've got our wedding reception coming up because we got married during the stupid November or the whole quarantine COVID bullshit that was going on. So we've got our wedding reception and then thank you. So it's just the next 3 weeks in particular are just one thing after another. But man, it's been fun. I've been keeping busy.
Yeah, no, I got that same sort of thing going on in my world, starting a podcast. Starting 2 podcasts, you know how much this takes to get it off the ground and just up and going, and some of the hurdles along the way, But you're up in Idaho. For our listeners that don't know, your podcast is the Vanguard Project, and I stumbled across you just because we know some mutual people, and I was listening to them on your podcast, and I was like, "This is fucking great, man!" And this is right up. It's right up kind of what we're doing. I mean, yours is a little bit different in the fact of what you guys are talking about, but there's a lot of similarities too. So I don't want to come off the wrong way, but I'm going to let you explain your podcast and your idea for it, and mostly what you guys cover on yours.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of funny because I've been in the outdoor industry in some way, shape, or form for a couple of years, right? In college, I shot trap for 3 years, I think. And when I graduated, I started shooting long range and started doing the PRS matches and got connected with Eberly Stock. And from there, I've been able to kind of facilitate or kind of grow a couple different relationships. Excuse me. And last summer, I got connected with several folks that I just really didn't know how to talk to, right? I was literally some kid in Idaho that shot guns, and I didn't have any way to relate to these really awesome people that are out in the industry doing cool stuff, like hunting, military guys, just people that do crazy stuff that I just had no idea to talk to, right? Or how to talk to.
Sure.
And so COVID hit, and I was like, well, I really want to go hunting. I feel like it's about time. I kind of stopped shooting long range matches for a while. I turned it more into a job than anything. And so I was like, well, I'm going to start hunting and I'm going to start hiking around some more and whatever, try and just do something different. And I was at the gym and I was like, you know what? I like to talk. I was like, I really like to talk to people. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start interviewing people because I want to understand who they are. And I've never had a shortage of motivation. I know that might sound really conceited, but if I want something, I'm going to just go do it. I'm going to work for it. And I've always been really fortunate that
it seems to be the best way to figure it out, right? Just do it.
Yeah. I love getting thrown into the fire. I literally learned by just fucking having to do something. And so really when I started the podcast, I was like, I just want to know what makes people tick so that when other folks listen to it, they can be like, well, I want to be a SWAT dude. How do I even think about becoming a SWAT dude? Well, you can go listen to Alex or Kiaki and be like, well, this was their path and I can relate to that. And I'm going to go model myself or maybe learn how to do something a little bit differently. Or, selfishly, I've learned how to how to scout a little bit better or how to hunt or stalk just based off of the conversations that I've had with other hunters that know more than I do, right? And so that was really the intent, is to have some pretty deeply rooted conversations about why people do things the way that they do and how they go about it. And it's interesting because, you know, that was really the meat and potatoes of it, but it's really turned into like kind of understanding how people overcome certain challenges. So like I've talked to folks that, you know, we've talked about I think that there's been allusions to suicide, or I know that there will be, at least in upcoming episodes, and talking about kind of like the darkness of those things and how people have overcome stuff like that. And, you know, talking about mental health and tackling, you know, topics that are pretty hard, because for me, mental health is a very big part of my life. And so it's fun in like kind of a morbid, fucked up kind of way to sit down and be like, I get it. Everybody's fucked up too. Let's talk about it. You know,
Right.
It's good to get it out in front of people because, you know, I feel like in the outdoor community, you don't really talk about stuff like that. And so it's been an interesting turn of events to kind of shift it to really being able to talk about stuff that I've experienced a little bit more openly while learning about something entirely new to me. So it's really, it covers a lot of different things. Like it hasn't been super siloed in any particular avenue just yet.
That's perfect. You know, the whole reason that I started a podcast was really to raise some awareness. But then I quickly found out some of the very same things that you did. You know, like I enjoy learning, and I always have. And I think that that's why I've always picked the careers that I've picked, or have, you know, cornered people that I thought were interesting, and, you know, just beat questions out of them, basically.
Yeah.
And podcasting's the perfect world. And I think that for me, you know, I really only became a podcast fan maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. Because I just always listened to music. That's what I did, you know, like when I was in the gym.
Right.
And now it's the exact opposite. It's very rare, like, that I'll listen to music unless I need a certain mindset. You know, I'm learning why I'm lifting weights. I'm learning why I'm driving. I'm learning why I'm flying to A and B. You know, when I'm walking down the street, there's all this useful information that's out there now. And that's one thing I love about your podcast. Like, even if you're not into what the guest is, or you don't want to learn, you can take something from every conversation that's out there.
Yeah.
And to me, it never really hit me until I started podcasting myself. I was like, I can say whatever I want. I can say, like, if you go
nobody's going to say anything.
Yeah. If you go listen to an episode of Show Ready Podcast, my other one, and, you know, we were talking about the fuck counter, it's probably like, you know what I mean? There's no censorship. There's no producer coming up to me going like, Anna doesn't walk up to me and goes, hey, you know, you said fuck like 198 times in 1 hour. So maybe you want to tell me.
And you're like,
I
don't fucking care.
So no, that's definitely one of the things I love about it. And, you know, to being able to choose who's in the hot seat, you know, like who do you want to have on your show? Like that whole thing, it's not being force fed to me by anybody. No, only I get to pick. It's crazy
how easy it is. Yeah, and it's crazy how easy it is to get a hold of people. Like it's blown me away that how honestly, like, so you look up to people, right? Obviously, you look out in the industry and you're like, oh, this person does this. This is so cool. I would love to be like that. Well, they are never like out of reach, which is just the craziest thing. Like, most of the people that I've gotten to interact with, I've sent an instant message to, or a DM to, and I'm dating myself, a DM to, you know, on Instagram, just being like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Here's what I'm about. Do you want to come chat? And it's just like, oh, fuck yeah, let's fucking do it. I'm free in an hour. And it's like, hey, well, I'm at work, so let's connect maybe next week, you know. But it's just crazy because, like, you learn so much from everybody. Like, I've been able to reach out to just, like, crazy people that I never thought that I'd have hang out in my living room, you know?
Right. And there goes the camera.
And you went dark.
It's all right, cool.
Got the little beep beep.
There we go.
All right, sorry about that. Little technical difficulties. You know, I got to say, too, right now, this is the first virtual podcast that we've done, so congratulations on that, man. That's one thing that we've tried to stick with the Mountainside, because I love meeting people in person.
Yeah,
you know,
I totally agree.
And but you know, with the way that the world is, and everybody's traveling now, and it's hard to be in studio and still do what we want to do. So
Yeah, yeah. Especially like some jobs require like a quarantine. So it's like, hey, even if I were to leave, if I were to fly somewhere, like I could drive anywhere in the United States and it's fine. But if I were to fly, it's like, hey, well, that adds just another level of complexity to going back to whatever the fuck normal's supposed to be, you know?
100%, man. Like, I still dibble dabble in the entertainment industry because I just don't think I'll ever get away from it. The COVID restrictions has just made the world. It's made travel. Everything is just, even though it's freeing up a little
Difficult.
bit, it's more difficult for sure. And I feel like a lot of companies, businesses, and stuff are using it to their advantage sometimes as an excuse. I feel like maybe some of the hotels, like travel chains, that sort of thing, like it's not the same level of service. And it's like, oh, because of COVID. It's like, okay.
That's fair.
You're going to argue with it, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, is Idaho, do you guys have some fires going up there this week or?
Dude, it's fucking horrible. Yes, we do. I don't know where they're at, but it's every year. So every year we have fire season, really, right? And so we end up getting them from, they blow in from, different areas throughout the states. But this week it's been pretty gnarly. Like, I mean, it was really weird because yesterday I was out playing with my bow like late last night, and it's so funny because I'll stand out in my cul-de-sac and I'll shoot into the garage.
What do your neighbors think of that? Are they cool?
Oh, they think it's hilarious. Yeah, they walk out. They come out and hang out with me while I'm shooting and stuff. Like my neighbors, I think his niece came out and she was like helping me rip target or arrows out of the target. And was like all curious at how it was going to work. And
you got good neighbors there.
But they are. They're all super cool. But no, it's been bad lately. It looks pretty clear. I'm looking out the window right now. It looks pretty clear right now. But I'm hoping, it clears up pretty soon. I'm getting out of town next weekend, so hopefully get out of the smog a little bit.
Well, we even are getting the smoke down in Colorado from your guys' fires, I think.
Yeah.
And Anna, you might check and see, do we have any going on in Colorado right now? I mean, I'm in Connecticut, so I can't see any of the smoke. I'm in Hartford, Connecticut right now.
What's in Connecticut?
I'm actually picking up my daughter here. She's been in a ballet school for the last 3 weeks, so picking her up tomorrow. And I was over here on some other stuff. I was close to here. I was on this side of the country anyway. So
check it out. We've got some fires going on. It's like Colorado does have a few in Morgan Creek.
That's what I was afraid of.
Mudslide, and then Sylvan. Still active as of Tuesday.
Wow.
It's been hot in Colorado, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's and I just have you living in Idaho, and let's dive into your background a little bit here too, because that's one thing, and then we'll go down this path. But did you grow up in Idaho or born and raised there? I don't know much about your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in Nampa, which is about half an hour outside or just west of Boise. And so I grew up, it's called the Treasure Valley. So Treasure Valley encompasses Boise, Meridian, Caldwell, Nampa, kind of several other towns throughout. So I grew up in Nampa. It was really funny because my background has nothing to do with the outdoors, like at all. I was like the opposite of outdoorsy growing up. Growing up, I was definitely like a nerd, indoor kid. Grew up playing, World of Warcraft. I worked at Best Buy throughout like high school and college, fixing computer. I was a Geek Squad. I worked in Geek Squad for almost a year in college. So I went to a Christian university. So there's Northwest Nazarene University in town because I wanted to study computer science, graphic design, wanted to be a youth pastor, and private schools are super expensive. And so I only was there for a year, and then I was like, I can't afford to stay here. So I transferred to a public university, and it was during like kind of that transition time when my dad bought my mom like a pistol class, and like one of my coworkers convinced me to go with them because I had no desire. I was like, I don't want to fucking go shoot guns. Like I have no desire, And he was like, dude, free shooting. You should totally do it. And so that was like the first kind of like input for me into like starting to like experience what guns were, because I had no idea. And so like I'm very obsessive. Like once I find something that like I love, I like dive right into it, like kind of creepily so. Like I like will research the hell out of whatever topic. Like at one point, you know, my wife was like, "You love your guns more than you love me because you spend more time researching." Well, she did. Yeah, she was upset. She was upset when we first started dating because, yeah. And but then when I started going to Boise State and I started studying economics and Chinese. Like my background's super like different than outdoors. Like it has nothing to do with the outdoor industry. And then when I was at Boise State, I found out that they've got a college, like a collegiate shooting team, which like was not very like active, I guess. And at that time, I was super big into the pistol competitions. Like I was, you know,
so I gotta
living at my
ask you,
parents' house.
Is that like a marksmanship or is it a tactical? I mean, it's probably not a tactical shooting thing, right?
Yeah, it was more speed than anything. So it was the USPSA, so the United States Practical Shooting Association. And what they'll do is they'll set up like, pretend like you've got a hallway, right? So they'll add barricades up and they'll add like 15 targets around it. You've got 180 degrees that you're shooting around. And you're going to run through it and you're going to shoot as fast, as accurate, and as safe as you can, right? And, you know,
so
they'll add in
a
like
form of tactical then almost, right? I mean,
yeah, kind of, because not really, because you're not using concealment and cover so much as just going fast. Whereas like I know in some, like they've got one that's called IDPA, and I don't know if that's still like an ongoing thing. I never competed in it, but that is much more tactical, where you have to take concealment, cover, draw from concealment, right? So if you're carrying, and they'll limit it to like a production class, so you can't have any more than like 10 rounds or a red dot or any of these things. Sure. So I never did any of that. I didn't have a gun at that time that I could have done it with, because the first gun I ever bought was specifically for USPSA. And it was really funny because while I was doing that, I would do like one math problem or one econ problem, right? And then I would dry fire for 15 minutes. And then I'd go back and I'd do a problem and I'd dry fire. And it's so loud because you'd hear clack, 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 bang, clack, 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 right? Or the dry firing.
Sure.
And my parents were like, it's fucking annoying. And so then when I started running the team at Boise State, it was all shotgun. And it was like it was trap and skeet with a little bit of sporting clays. And I'd like knew nothing about shotgun sports, right? And during that time, there was a lot of like shootings going on, and it was a very difficult time for guns in general, but then also to pair it with the university. So running the team, I was really navigating the political aspect of it, right? So making sure that the team could still shoot, not pissing any of the faculty off, right? Making sure that the money that the team earned from competing, we could still actually use, because it just was super weird as far as like trying to bring in out-of-state students to, you know, where we could store their firearms and how to like purchase ammunition using funds that technically are at the school. So that was very challenging. So my job was really more administrative at that time. And we ended up bringing a coach on who is now my best friend. And I hated him when he first started. Like, I was super polished. Like, he was a dick. Like, I mean, he knows it, and I will talk shit about him because he and I just fucking never saw eye to eye. Because, like, I was polished, right? Like, my gig was, like, the political nature of this job. And his job, like, being a coach was he had shot for, like, the USA team. And then he was fresh out of the Marine Corps. And he just was like this hate-filled human being. And I was like, I fucking hate you for being a hate-filled fucker, you know? Like, go to hell, you know? And so over time, like, he polished up and I roughed down to the point where, like, you know, we got along really, really well. And when I graduated, he was like, dude, you got to get a scoped rifle. And I was like, this is retarded. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Those are expensive. And, like, the stars all aligned, and I decided just to buy a gun, right? I went and bought the Hot Rod 6.5 Creed at the time that was a Savage Model 12, and, you know, bought this gun and scope combination that I didn't even know how any of it worked. And that was really what launched me into, like, where I'm at now with the shooting, and which has really slowed down just kind of over the past year. But that really is so funny because like that one piece of shit gun that I built, right, is really what got me to where I'm at now. So
yeah. And what was that catalyst to the outdoors and your love for the outdoors? Because I mean they kind of go hand in hand, but not really. I mean, guns, I mean, they do from a hunting standpoint, but what made you go down that path and then, eventually get into archery?
Dude, that's a good question. So I, in college, went backpacking a couple times, and that was a lot of fun. And like, I'd gone camping a little bit growing up, never like serious tent camping, but I honestly think that there was just, and I'm totally just kind of making this up right now, but I feel like there was just this sense of like, I need to go do things outdoors. Like, I just need to be a man and fucking get outside, But really what has kind of lent it to where it's at now, I think, was at least being actively wanting to go camping or scouting or whatever was last year. So after this networking event that I went to last year, I got a care package from one company, and I was like, I have to do something with this, right? Like, there's just this really big opportunity for me to go use the skills that I've learned from taking pictures, right, and go produce content, right? And so I started going out and just spending time out. Not really, it wasn't even in the backcountry. Like, it was literally like I pulled off the side of the road and hiked up some small little hill and tried to take some cool pictures. And that slowly started to morph into like, I love being in nature. I love being disconnected. I love seeing what the world has, how big the country really is. And so it slowly morphed into that, so much so that like I stopped tent camping and I built, my coworkers call it the Redneck Ritz, because I built a camper shell on the back of my pickup that's literally like a mobile home. And so now it's like on any given weekend, it's like, yeah, I really just want to be away. Like, if I'm not outside, even if it's just for the morning, like, I get grumpy throughout the week. So it slowly kind of just turned from like, yeah, it's fun being outside, I love seeing cool stuff, to like, oh man, like, I love being in nature, I love being disconnected, I love seeing the world outside, and like, I'm only here for so long, right? Might as well make the most of it.
Yeah, for me, it's a major reset. Like, as much as I love to shoot my bow and I love the actual process of hunting, I don't like to kill shit, to be honest with you, man. I do not like to kill animals. It's the one part of it I don't actually like. But for me, it's more of like, okay, it's that week, it's work, and then it's the appreciation of every time I put my plate down, I know exactly where it came from. I work for it. I appreciate it more. Like my biggest fear is my chest freezers are in the garage, and is like, did the power go out and is all that meat spoiled? You know what I mean? Like, I have generators hooked up to it and shit. That's the whole reason I have a generator. It's like, I don't want that meat to spoil. I worked so hard for this. And being an elk hunter, it's not an easy task, man. It's not at all. But
yeah. So last year was the first time I remember going, I might have been 10, and my uncle like took us with him. And I don't even really count that because like I didn't really want to be there, But last year was the first time I'd ever gone hunting, right? Like, I had been doing all this stuff, taking all these pictures, been connected with people, and I'm like, hey, like, don't be that guy that like fucking talks to these people and doesn't do it, right? And so I was like, I texted my buddies and I was like, hey, listen, I need to do this. I really want to go. I'm like, got the bug really bad. I've got everything I need. I need to stop making excuses. Because I'd made excuses for years, right? It's like, oh, I'm not, I'm going to be at the gym. And it's like, well, fuck, you're getting a workout anyways. Fucking go, And so I texted my buddies and I was like, hey, I'm going. I need to do it. Tell me what I need to do. I'll spend the 2 hours doing the little hunter's ed and I'll fucking go buy a tag. Just tell me what I need to do. And I was really fortunate because my buddy was like, okay, you need to get this, do this, be here on this day. You're sleeping in the middle, And because like they had a jumping jack and it was like, hey, we've already got our trip planned. You're welcome. It's just deer camp, so you're welcome to come up with us. And so I slept in the middle of the jumping jack on the floor, And, I definitely underprepared as far as how cold it was going to be. Cause like at that time I'd never really camped during the winter. So I had no idea what it was going to be like. And so we got up and we didn't get anything for deer season, but I told my buddies, I was like, this is it. Like, I'm addicted. Like, I need to do this again. And so I got a text like a couple days later that was like, hey, 2 weeks out, elk season's coming. Let's do it. So they took me out during their elk hunt. And, I got an elk tag, but I totally was like, hey, listen, I'm really here just to learn how you guys are doing it. If you both get something and we find the third one, like I'm not going to say no, but like I'm here just to kind of, be your shadow. And it's amazing like how spooky elk are. Like it's crazy how easy it is to scare them off.
They're so fucking
Never see them
smart,
again.
man. They're really smart animal. People don't give them as much credit, but you put a bow in your hand and try to chase them around, you'll give them some credit. Right? Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, and it's crazy the country that they live in. I mean, like you drive by, so if I'm going to go to Stanley, which is it's a really nice, it's the Sawtooth Mountains. It's kind of how you get into, one way to get into the Sawtooth. And like, it's crazy how steep the terrain is, right? But like, that's where they're at. Like, if you want to get a big butt or a big bull, like you got to fucking work in the craziest terrain. And so it's just been super fun because I've been out scouting 2 or 3 times now this year, just kind of preparing. And it's like, I'm out of shape. Like, that's tough.
It turns into a full summer regiment for me. It's a year-round regiment, but the summer months, as soon as the weather gets nice at home, like around March, I start putting in the miles just for that fact of like, when the actual season comes along in September, I don't want to be dying or trying to chase something or get something down and be dog tired trying to get it out, which you're going to be regardless. But being in shape definitely helps for that. You know what I mean? Like, because like you said, they're in deep, dark holes. I don't have horses. I can't afford to pay an outfitter to get me in and out. And, in September in Colorado, I don't know what it's like in Boise, but it's pretty similar climates. It can be hot. And if you don't get that meat out of there within a certain amount of time, it's done. Yeah. So I think that's really important. I think another thing that's really cool, excuse me, about your buddies, and I encourage people to do this all the time. If you know somebody that wants to get into hunting or they've expressed to you like, hey, I want to learn how to do this, I feel it's kind of like your part as a sportsman, as long as they're going to be safe. I mean, preach safety first, but try to take them under your wing, man. Show them the right way to do it. Not everybody, grew up the way that you and I did, or had a father figure that took them out, or something like that. Like I was very fortunate. I had uncles that taught me how to do all that sort of stuff, and to this day, I'm still learning from them because they're better hunters than I am, straight up.
Yeah. Well, and it just never ends, right? There's some new technology or some new pattern that emerges, right? Like they evolve just the same way we do, right? So it's like, hey, one year they'll summer here, the next year they'll summer there. A bedding spot would change, 200 yards, which you never would have thought of if you did put in the miles or maybe didn't check the weather, right? It's crazy all the things that you have to think about in order to make it happen. Because even this last weekend, right, I've never bow hunted, right? So this year's, I'm planning on it being my first year. And so a different buddy and I were out scouting. And he was like, okay, pretend there's a buck. And I wrote about this. I started a blog on my website. Like somebody was like, hey, give it a shot. Excuse me. And I was like, all right, well, I don't really, I write 5-word emails. So writing a 2,500 word thought was kind of difficult, but, he was like, hey, let's pretend like there's a buck over there. And how are you going to go stock up on it? Right. And he walked me through the thought process on how to do it. And I was like, man, I would have never harvested had I not had somebody like explain, different ways to use the terrain and the direction that they're feeding and coming from, top down versus bottom up. And it's windage, wild, it's just so cool.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things you brought up is like you decided one day you woke up and you were like, I want to be outside. So I'm going to text someone that I know that goes outside and I'm going to be like, yo, dude, tell me some things about how I go outside. Like it's hard to cross that line of like, hey, I don't know something, but I think that's the most important part is to like reach out to that person and say, hey, take me with you.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I love preaching ignorance. Like even in jobs where I've been like, I've been in roles for a while, right? And it's fun just to sit there and be like, I don't like, sure, I might know enough to like have an intelligent conversation, but that is so much different than just sitting down and be like, hey, I don't know what the fuck you do. I'm going to tell you what I know. And then let's figure it out, right? Let's talk about this. Let's fill in the gaps of both of our knowledge, because it's so much fun when you sit down, because some people just, nobody, I mean, some people don't like to share knowledge, right? There's some tribal knowledge that people like to hang on to, but it's so easy to get information from people when you just have the air of like, I just want to know. I just want to learn because, like, I don't want to die,
Yeah. No, that's huge. And I think that there's so many awesome podcasts out there now that talk about bow hunting specifically, whether you're a traditional bow hunter or a compound bow hunter. And I think that those are great. And I'm not knocking any of that. But in the field experience goes a long ways. I mean, you can learn a lot from those podcasts, but don't think that you're just ready just because you've listened to 150 episodes of Cafaro Cast that you're going to be able to go harvest an elk. I mean, it's definitely going to help you. It's going to help. Like, every little bit helps, but don't be afraid to raise your hand or find somebody or go hire an outfitter for your first time. To me, that's one of the best ways to learn. If you really want to learn how to fly fish and be successful, hire a guide, if it's within your means.
You have to get out there, like that's the craziest thing about, I feel like all of the things that I've learned is it's great that you want to do something, but you have to start, right? You literally have to just jump in and get after it. Like, I bought this bow, right? When I bought my bow, I bought a ready to hunt package, because it was cheap. It was affordable at the time. I didn't know if I was going to like it. And I was like, I don't know how any of this works. Like, YouTube was like useless for me when I bought it, because I couldn't find the right videos that like explained it in like idiot terms. And when I bought it, I was like, I told the guy at Cabela's, I was like, do I have to tune this at home? Because like, I don't want to spend another $600 on a bow press and all of these other things. And so he stood there and he helped me for like, I don't know, it was like an hour and a half, get it all dialed in. And, I put time behind the bow now. So like, I feel comfortable at, 60 yards or 40 yards is kind of like my bread and butter, but it's like, okay, sure, I can shoot that far, but can I even get that close to an animal? Fucking no. Right now, not even close.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a whole lot of variables too. I think a lot of people will just stand at an archery range, especially if you live in an urban environment, and just throw arrows on perfectly polished concrete straight down 20 yards, right? And then, you owe it to that animal to set a limit and hunt ethically. And that's what I think is so great. You mentioned Total Archery Challenge, and you're going to experience that.
Yep.
The 3D shoots, honestly, is one of my favorite things about archery, man. Like, there's 3D shoots everywhere, and it is so much fun, man. You will hike, 5 to 6 miles, so you're getting exercise. Some of the ones in Colorado, you're shooting off of cliffs, and there's some awesome spots like American Bowman and just like that are, these, I don't know, 300-400 acre properties, and they have close to 80 targets on them, 2 courses. And it's
that's so cool.
It's in the mountains, like it's in the element, and they'll set it up too. Like, they'll set up the shots like you got to shoot through trees. And so that I think that those little practices and that sort of thing, like, to shoot your bow straight downhill or off of a cliff is hard, man. It's weird. Your sights don't line up the same. Your anchor feels funky. You have to think about, shot geometry so you don't hurt somebody.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited because we've got a 3D range out here that I've gone to, and there's nothing that's super extreme necessarily, but I mean, it's just enough that you have to like actually think about the geometry to a certain extent. So I'm excited. On my way home tonight after work, I actually went and bought like a full dozen arrows because I'm like, I'm losing all of these. Like, I'm
that's
fully
the thing,
expecting not
like,
to come home.
They're pretty cheap to sign up and go do, $20-$30 depending. I think Total Archery Challenge is a bit more, but that's because they're renting a ski resort. You're riding a chairlift to the top of the mountain. Like, there's brand new targets.
Swanky.
It's definitely swanky. And I think that there's some big prizes too. I don't know. I've never really gotten into that side of it, but yeah, I think it's just a great avenue if you're thinking about getting into archery, especially if you're hunting, to kind of gauge your limits in a safe environment and have other people around you, because there is going to be pressure when you're hunting too. That's another thing that I think that people don't factor in when they're standing at the archery range. Like, it's a different story when a bull elk comes in and is bugling in your face, you know, like that's nerves start to kick in, and it's
I look forward to that day. Like, I've been so I bought my little my calls, and my wife, so yeah, she's not happy with me. I'll practice. It's so funny. I'll be on the freeway, like headed into work, and I'll like roll my window down in the morning and like, what the fuck is that?
Right. So I got to ask this too. Are you guys seeing, you know, with COVID hitting, I mean, Colorado was booming to begin with, right? Like, there's so many people moving into the state prior to COVID, and then COVID just escalated it, because I think people realized real quick, like, man, living in downtown Chicago is great. It's great in the summertime. It's great to have restaurant after restaurant to choose from and have that city life. But man, in the middle of a pandemic, New York City is not the place to be where you're on top of people, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies found out too, like, hey, our employees can work remote and still be productive. So maybe we don't need this office space. So I think that was kind of encouraged, and we have just seen such a huge influx in the state of Colorado. Is Boise kind of the same, or Idaho?
Very much so. Yeah. I think Idaho in general, Boise and like a Treasure Valley, definitely. We've historically had a lot of California transplants, anyways. But I don't know if COVID was necessarily the trigger for it, so much as the cost of living in Boise is very low relative to a lot of areas. So we did have a huge influx over the past several months. Like, my mother-in-law, I can't remember what she bought her house for, but I think it might have been like, I'm going to get it wrong, I think it was like $80,000 like 10 years ago, right? She just sold it for $330,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just like, it has spiked, and it's unfortunate for guys like, you know, Eric and I. So my wife, you know, we can't, I mean, if we worked really, really hard and like didn't do anything, we could probably get into a house in 18 months, right? But that would be like, God, it would be such dumb luck, right, to get in, because people come in with cash offers, buy a house.
Oh, it's
that's
a feeding
it. No
frenzy,
offense about it.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. I don't know. It sounds like my dad sent me an article the other day, and it sounds like it's starting to slow down potentially. And I was talking to somebody else this morning, and I can't remember who, but I guess that there's some odd stuff that's starting to happen in the market that might level it out, which is great, because like, we rent this place now, and it'd be nice to actually get property and fix it up, and I'm sure our dogs would like a bigger backyard. But
yeah, I encourage. I mean, those are some of the best investments I've ever made. You're able to grow from it if you're in a normal state. So hopefully it goes back to a little bit of a normal state. With the influx, like, one of the things I'm noticing, and the reason why I started the Mountainside podcast, is there is a ton of people recreating, and we have, 50% of the state, or just under 50%, is public land for people to use.
Yeah.
And
that's sweet.
It's just getting trashed, like, I mean, it's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I think it's just education. So I'm trying to fill a little bit of a gap there, right? Like, I ask the stupid questions, the questions that I already know the answers to sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just want people to learn. Are you guys seeing like huge influx in people recreating outdoors, mountain bikers, trails? I mean, we notice it just because of trash and all that sort of stuff is left behind.
Yeah, camping, I'm trying to think.
Fires.
Camping for sure. I don't know what. So like this year, so I don't read the news honestly as often as I should. So I don't really know what started the fires here this year. But I definitely believe, and again, right, I think that there's been a huge influx in outdoor activities. I think at one point RVs were getting difficult to find.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this year, like when I went to Cabela's like last weekend, it's like you can't find tents. You know, tents are like non-existent now that it's warm. You know, which is great.
I mean, for a year now.
Yeah, but a lot of the places like I try and go when I'm out, you know, tend to be either when people aren't going to go as well. So like I might go on a Friday night when people typically will leave on a Saturday, for instance.
Sure.
Or I'll go a little bit further out than some people would go. So I'm not really around a lot of people when I go out. You know, most of the time I'm going with like a purpose. So I tend to go a little bit further away if I can. But it also kind of depends on timing, situation, how long I'm willing to be gone, stuff like that.
My buddy Mark Montoya says it best. He goes, yeah, it's crowded for the first 10 miles.
Yeah,
and then
right?
after that, you don't see anybody.
It's so funny because, like, oh God. So 2 weeks ago, I was going scouting and I drove through, there's this one town called like, it's like Pine and Featherville. And there's a big like reservoir there, and like it is just fucking packed there, like just lined up with like gigantic RVs. And I'm like, that looks miserable. And so like I keep going, hit a dirt road, drive back like 8 miles, and I'm like, I'm gonna die out here. Like,
yeah,
there's nothing out here. And so you know, I park, set up camp, and everything, and I see a couple ATVs fly by, and it's like, that's like the extent of it. It's like I can live with 2 ATVs, and like you have a couple freaking mule deer walking like 100 yards out, and you're like, well, my job's done. I'm good to go. You know, make some steak, take a nap, be good to go.
Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. And I think that's the biggest thing that was disheartening for me is pulling into a campsite and seeing where somebody had went to the bathroom for the 3 days that they were there every day. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
or people leaving trash, even if it's in a campfire pit. I don't want to burn your trash. You know what I mean? Like, pick your stuff up, that sort of thing. So just trying to educate people. I was just curious if you guys were seeing sort of the same influxes and same issues.
There was definitely one area I know that they did try and shut down because it was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how successful they were in getting, because it was a stretch of road that, you know, you get like your tweakers and stuff out there, and it was pretty trashed. And I don't know, I learned about that. I've gone up there like twice, and I haven't been back since. So, but in a lot of the other areas I've been that are pretty well traveled, I haven't seen it be pretty bad. I think that in the area, a lot of folks, at least in the valley, I feel take pretty good care of the area, which is a pretty good feel-good thing.
Yeah, man.
But I also haven't been to every campsite. I don't think that's even possible. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely difficult. I'm sure, you know, Colorado's the same. It's just those heavily populated areas. It's just people that I feel like are kind of missing out on some education. So yeah. it's not a knock on it personally, but you know, you guys have gray wolves in Idaho. We have very minimal in Colorado. Have you ever ran across wolves? Have wolves ever been a problem? Do you think that that's affecting your elk population and some of that other stuff up there?
You know, I don't know enough about the wolf population, but from what I've heard, it has affected not necessarily the elk population, but I guess wildlife in general. I know that they did, I guess, make it popularized to a certain extent, wolf tags, which I know I honestly, I need to get one, because there will be a day that I will run into a wolf, and I don't want to get shafted for not having one.
Sure.
But yeah, I haven't seen any wolves out. I haven't heard any of them. So I don't know if I'm just not trying hard enough, or if I've just been
they're pretty elusive, man. They are not like, they're almost nocturnal, you know what I mean? Like they're a pretty elusive animal, from what I've seen, you know, and what I've done my research on, just trying to shoot them in Yellowstone as a photographer. Like I've done trips where I haven't seen a wolf, and then, you know, when I did see one with my 500 mil lens, it was so far away you couldn't even make it out. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah. It's so they're super elusive animal. I was just curious because we just voted wolves in Colorado. I was wondering if you saw anything firsthand. I mean, there's people on both sides of the fence that are, you know, very, very anti-wolf, and there are some people that are very, very pro-wolf. But it doesn't really seem like there's anybody in the middle, you know?
No, I don't know. So this is totally where I get to claim ignorance. I being so new to like the hunting side of things, I haven't spent the time I know I need to, or I'm learning I need to understand the population side of it, population control, the effects of species and stuff like that, right? Like I'm literally in like such an infantile stage of learning what.
Yeah,
like,
but you're just
I guess
enjoying
really what
it.
Conservation needs.
You're enjoying it as a sportsman.
Yeah.
When you're buying that hunting license, you're paying people to do that basically for you. It's like that's why they issue so many tags, you know. So it's not. Yeah. You're not expected to know that as a sportsman, you know. I don't think, but
like logically. Logically, to me, it makes sense to have some sort of predator population control, right?
You have
like
to.
we do that with coyotes. Yeah. So like coyotes are more or less treated like varmint, right? Like no shit. If I see one on the side of the road and I'm not like in town, like, and I've got I think it's a fur bearer's license, like fucking smoke it, leave it, let the vultures get it, you know, because they ruin everything. And so, I mean, I think that, you know, they run rampant to a certain extent here. And that might be an overstatement. Like you can find them anywhere you want. But I think that to a certain extent, population control makes sense as far as predators go. Because if you let them run wild, well, then what are sportsmen supposed to eat, right? How does that affect the ecosystem in the long run?
Yeah.
I mean, there's ripple effects to every choice you make. And if you let predators run wild, well, what are the long-term effects of that? I mean, I don't know.
Part of my issue is, you know, like, it seems to be all about the wolf right now, but there's thousands of other species that were once here in the United States that are no longer here, and nobody's letting free range bison just go taking down all the fence so bison can roam.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. Like you've got bison, you've got deer, you've got elk. I mean, bears. I don't know if wolves. I imagine wolves go after bears.
I think it impacts everything. I mean, mountain lions, all that sort of stuff, but. Yeah, you have to be able. I think where the real issue comes, and we've had Colorado Division of Wildlife in, is, you know, they're really good at managing wildlife. That's their job. They are biologists. They count numbers. They issue tags. They make a healthy population, you know, based on what the area needs. You know, so like if it's close to a city area and elk are constantly getting hit by cars. They're going to issue some more hunting licenses there to thin them out, like that sort of thing. The problem with the wolf situation is wolves are going to be there, but there's no way to manage them because it's, you know, it's a federally protected animal. So
yeah,
but
I don't know. You're getting me thinking.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at Idaho and like Wyoming, which is right across the border, you know, and is going to be in their migration path, is shoot on sight if the wolf comes there. So it's like all the money that we spent reintegrating wolves into Colorado are just going to get blasted as soon as they cross. Yeah, which, you know, and then you got states like Idaho. If you go to certain areas up there, there's certain foundations and stuff that will pay a bounty. Like basically you can make money as a wolf hunter, right? Like, you get $700-800 or something like that for.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah. My wife loves wolves, so if I took a wolf, she would be livid.
Right. Yeah. I just we haven't really talked to anybody up there, and I'm stoked that you're on the podcast. But let's dive back into your podcast a little bit. What was kind of what gave you the idea? Because I think it's so cool what you're doing, man. Like what was the first like spur? Like, hey, I want to learn from other people's experiences.
Oh man, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. So really, God, it's super funny. So I have like a strong tendency, like every 6 months, to kind of change like a passion to a certain extent, right? So like 1 month or, you know, for a 6 month period, it would be like long range shooting, which for me was like a 2-year deal. But like, then it would morph into, well, I'm going to focus just on like tactical, like AR room clearing stuff. Okay. Well, I did that for 6 months. I learned a lot. cool, I'm going to change something else and I'm going to go into, just fitness, and I'm going to go straight into jujitsu for, drinking soda, a year, and I'm going to do that for a year and then like move on. Right. And so I kind of wanted a platform that I could do that quickly and learn from all of these different types of people. And then understand, I think that it was a byproduct of just understanding how they got there and what motivated them. And that just kind of turned into like the way that I made it meaningful. Cause it's nice to sit down and be like, hey, why did you do it? How did you get into it? But then it's like, hey, well, like, I know that when I start something new, it gets really difficult at some point in time, right? You plateau, or you feel like you just got the shit kicked out of you and you want to quit. It's like, hey, well, that's the important part, right? Is like, okay, you didn't quit, right? Well, why didn't you quit? Because that's what I think people, like to hear is like, hey, I look up to this person. They wanted to quit, but they didn't. Why didn't they quit? Well, they thought of their son when they were on a ruck march, right? Well, they thought of their kid, when they were overseas, or, something like that, that I was really interested in hearing of how people thought about life to take those next steps. And so really that for me was kind of the catalyst, was like, I love to learn and I love to kind of like hone in on specific things. So I'm going to just talk to people that are really good at it, because it kind of fuels my curiosity, but then also provides some level of benefit. So it was a little selfish, but definitely like morphing into like, well, I mean, if I have a platform to educate, then I'm going to do it. There's no reason not to.
Absolutely. Man, I got a guest list for you. Like, I don't know. We'll try to get them together. I just want to hear them on your show. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But
I've got people too, man. You're talking about like hunting. I'm like, dude, I've got like, there's like 3 or 4 people I can think of that are in the Valley right now that like I'm sure would be able to answer your questions like with like gumption,
Well, let's do that, man. I'm all about sharing, or helping, and if anybody's, thinking about starting a podcast, what words of encouragement would you have for them? And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, just do it. Like, don't waste any time. Just do it.
100%. I would say do it. Be yourself. I've heard that so many times from everybody that I've talked to, right? Like, so I overthink everything, right? I overanalyze. Like, I fucking take pills because I overthink everything, And I would say just start it, get after it, and be yourself, because that is what's going to draw people to you and make whatever you're talking about. Like, no joke. Like, I was talking to one guy last night, and he just drinks beers and talks shit with his friends, but he gets paid, like he's like, his wife told him, was like, dude, like you would be the only inbred that could do that, whatever he said. I don't even remember, but it's like, that's your brand, right? You just be yourself. So start it, get after it. And then I would say like invest in good hardware right out of the gate, because I did not buy once, but I cried twice because I had to buy, multiple different pieces of hardware. But that honestly goes with any hobby, right? Like if you're going to get after it and you like it, just jump right in. And don't be afraid, like, to get the no. Like, I've been told no a couple times where it's like, hey, I'd love to chat with you. Ooh, not yet. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like, yeah, it hurts a little bit, but okay, I get it. That's fine. I'll move on. And so I think that if you're going to interview people, right, understand that, some people just don't want to talk yet, and that's fine.
What is the hardest part of the interview, and how do you prepare for a podcast? Do you do show notes? I mean, do you talk to your guests?
I used to.
Yeah.
I used to do show notes beforehand, and it got so at one point when I first started, I had like an interview every night, I think for like 2 weeks straight, something like that, because I was slated to go back into the office. And so I was trying to prepare for that. But in the meantime, like I was doing like 1 to 2 page show notes of just like research on that individual. And that got out of hand. Like it was just too much to try and keep on top of all of that. So really, like, I mean, I would do a little bit of research on them kind of on my own, check out like if they've got a page, or like I was talking to Michael Shea this afternoon. So I like cruised through his book, like half of his book as fast as I could this week, And so it's like I'll do a little bit of research to kind of get a feel for who the individual is, especially if I don't know them, and then formulate maybe a couple of questions. But that's not the hardest part, because like in mine, probably exactly like you listen with intent. So it's like, hey, you would ask a question, you would listen to what's being said and formulate more questions to build off of that. So that has come naturally, I guess. So for me, the hardest part is the introduction. Like, I don't know why, but I overthink like how to introduce somebody.
That's why
like,
I pre-record them. I pre-record them after
it's
the podcast, but yeah, it's
yeah. Well, like I don't even. It's so oh god, because I'll do my stupid little intro beforehand, and I like think of something really witty to say, and then I always sound like an idiot because it's like I stumble over it.
No, but you
like,
do a good
excited.
job, man. All your questions, you're asking the right questions at the right times. And I encourage anybody to go listen to Vanguard podcast or the Vanguard project. I'm sorry. Go listen to that podcast because you're going to learn something, whether you're into the guest or not. And, yeah, it's a great podcast, man. I'm rooting for you. And if you ever need any help, we're here for you too. So.
Well, thanks, man. I need to get you guys on and chat too.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it. We will definitely do that. What do you got coming up next? Do you have any big guests coming up that you know of, or do you want to drop any bombs on here? Are we going to keep it secret?
Yeah. No, you're fine. So let's see. I have a couple that's recorded. So I've got one with Jamie Shara from Hunter Recruitment Project.
Yeah.
So talking to him, and he's just a super cool dude. We talk a little bit about the Hunter Recruitment Project, and then a lot about his management of people and how he kind of builds folks up, which is super cool. Like, yeah, I'm really excited. I need to edit that one. So that one will drop in a couple of weeks. And then last night I talked with Luke Cadillo.
Oh,
I totally get his name wrong because I forgot that. From Gladiator. Yeah, that guy, super cool dude.
Luke's awesome. He lives
like
just around the corner from me, and he's been on our podcast, and I've been on his. He's a great guy. Great fucking guy, man. I love Luke.
He was super cool. So I think that those two right now are the big ones that I've got. And then I've got a networking event in 2 weeks. I'm hoping to make some more friends and drop some more stuff. But, dude, it's fun. I mean, it's just constantly booking people, chatting. I mean, drinking lots of coffee, trying to stay up and burn the midnight oil,
Right. Well, yeah, man. Well, thanks for collaborating with us, man. This is awesome. I love what you guys are doing and keep hammering it out. Before we jump off here, you want to drop your Instagram, website. You guys got all kinds of different stuff going on with your website.
All of it. Yeah. So website, I finally bought a domain. So it's vanguardstories.com. I know I was such a cheap ass because I didn't want to pay for it, but vanguardstories.com is officially where you can find me. And then Instagram is where a lot of like my interaction happens. So it's just the Vanguard Project with periods in between. And there I've got basically it's like all the stupid shit that I do outside of the podcast as far as what I'm doing, archery, breaking windows, sending arrows through drywall, which I may or may not have done. All sorts of stuff. So it's good. There's a lot of chaos that happens, but it's fun. So yeah, I'm kind of glued to it. So if you guys
explain to me too, you have some shorter versions, and I was just checking this out today because I like to listen to the interview ones, but you have some menacing of a madman, right, or something like that.
Yeah, musings of a madman.
Musings of a
so
madman.
I talked to musings of a madman. So I talked to Rick from Achilles Heel Tactical. That guy, you should talk to that guy. Okay. He's a super cool dude. And I can get you, I can get you in contact with him. But he was like, dude, what you're doing is good, but you're kind of taking like our brands and like kind of just, giving us another platform to talk. And he was like, so that's great and everything, but you should start figuring out a way to really develop your own brand and relate to people. And so I was like, cool, well, I'll start Musings of a Madman. Like, I love to learn something new. I'm very OCD. Like, I fixate on things. So I'll start this segment and I'll have people ask me questions and I'll answer whatever thing that they ask. So I've answered just stupid questions about, like, how much wood can a woodchuck chuck? And does a bear shit in the woods? People take advantage of it, which, like I totally signed up for it, but it slowly turned into, like, just quick updates on stuff that I've learned or that I'm working on so that when people listen to the types of questions that I'm asking, they can relate to what I've said in Musings of a Madman to what's going on. And there's been it's been interesting because in the early stages of the Musings of a Madman, it was very focused on the mental health stuff. So like, you know, I've been through the rigmarole of therapy and kind of had my own shit that I work through and understanding how like my brain works. And so kind of talking about stuff like that. And it's been kind of in vague terms because I'm still getting like used to being able to talk about stuff like that. And then it started turning into like what I've learned that week as far as interviews goes and how, you know, I've learned how to scout a little bit better or, you know, why I've been working out this way or whatever, right? So it's just kind
a
of
cool
like
way to reflect on yourself too, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like there was one a couple of weeks ago, actually it was last week, where it was like the night before I recorded it, my wife and I got in like a little bit of an argument, right? It was just over like, it literally was over like spraying the house for bugs. Like that was what it was. And like she was pissy at me. Yeah, and I was mad because I'm like, I've been fucking doing stuff all over the house and you're mad at me for this. You know, it was just really dumb. But like that night, so she works in law enforcement, shit went down, right? Like it was a really bad night for her. And like she was like, could you imagine if I went to work and we didn't sit down and talk about whatever was going on, right? Like before she left, she was like, you need to fucking tell me what's going on. We're going to figure it out because like, I'm not leaving the house until this is done, right? And so I talked about that next day in that recording because I was like, well, it's important, right? Like this is something that I literally like, this just happened. Like, could you imagine if she did get shot? You know, like that would have been the worst possible night to have that stupid fight over fucking spiders, you know? So talking about stuff like that was really fun as far as being able to relate. Like, you know, our relationship is pretty open about being able to discuss stuff like that because we've had, you know, our fair share of battle. It's been an uphill battle that just recently feels like it's like, hey, we understand each other in such a better way that we can talk about it and feel like we can relate to people in a way that makes sense. And so it's fun to share stuff like that in those musings of a madman that, you know, I feel some people might not necessarily like key into. So
sure.
Super weird. It's super weird to just like talk in a room about feelings
by
and
yourself,
and stuff like that. Yeah, like that's why I feel like a bit of a madman. You're like a fucking psycho, but whatever.
It's good,
I'm so
man.
glad you created a space to be like the, you know, rough and tough, manly kind of guy you are, and to say, hey, also I have feelings. It's great. Beautiful.
So thank you again, man. I really appreciate your time, and we'll catch you on the flip side, man.
Likewise. Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com. The Mountainside Podcast is now available on Patreon. So if you'd like ad-free listening, behind-the-scenes footage, or maybe you just want to help support what we do here at the Mountainside Podcast, please take a moment and visit patreon.com/themountainside. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Riverside FM. For the longest time, over 58 episodes, I was a stickler and I stuck to my guns about recording podcasts only in person. The reason why is I never found a virtual platform that would allow us to put out the quality of podcasts that I wanted to produce. That's until Riverside FM has come along. If you're looking for that next level above a Zoom call or some of these other platforms out there, Riverside FM is for you. The quality is unbelievable, and the different features that you can use while you're recording are amazing. Although the human element is still missing a little bit, the future of virtual recording for the Mountainside Podcast is going to be with Riverside FM, and I hope you enjoy this episode. We are also brought to you by Onnit. Onnit is an amazing company based right here in the USA, helping humans reach peak performance mentally and physically. Listen, this is not just another supplement company with the same old, same old. Onnit's diverse lineup of products and supplements are backed by science and research, and that's what truly makes this company so amazing. Onnit offers supplements to help sports performance, energy levels, your mood, sleep, brain function, focus, immune system, digestive health, and that's not all. Onnit also has amazing fitness programs, equipment, apparel, and you can now save 10% on all of it. Just visit onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com, and use the promo code TMS at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order. We are also brought to you by the #1 online outfitter for outdoor sports. I'm talking about Backcountry and the incredible brands that they carry like North Face, Patagonia, Garmin, Yeti, and the list truly goes on and on. You can find just about anything that you need for camping, hiking, biking, climbing, running, kayaking, all your snow sports, and much, much more. Backcountry's got you covered when you want to get outside and enjoy yourself on or in some incredible gear. Because Backcountry is a sponsor of the Mountainside Podcast, you can get an exclusive link that'll give you backdoor pricing. I'm talking 60 to 70% off on select items and discounted pricing site-wide. All you have to do is visit themountainsidepodcast.com, click on the affiliates page, and look for the Backcountry logo, or simply open the show notes wherever you're listening to the podcast right now and look for the Backcountry link.